Welcome to the Diesel Technology Forum's webinar, What's Next for Regional Diesel Collaboratives, Sizing Up Future Funding, Programs, and Opportunities. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. As a reminder, this event is being recorded. To ask a question at any time during the event, submit the question via the chat Q&A box. We encourage you to ask questions at any time during the presentation. Your questions will not be viewable by other attendees and will be addressed during the Q&A at the end of the session. I'd now like to turn the call over to your moderator for today, the Diesel Technology Forum's Director of Policy and External Relations, Ezra Finken.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for jumping on our webinar. Many of you are DTF members. But for those of you who are not Diesel Technology Forum members, let me give you a brief introduction to the group. We serve as a nonprofit advocate for clean diesel technologies across all applications, including light and heavy-duty vehicles, off-road equipment, and power generation. We represent engine, vehicle, equipment, and component manufacturers and fuel producers and manufacturers of emissions control technologies. We work to bring together a broad spectrum of stakeholders, including leaders in industry, environmental advocacy groups, and government to exchange ideas about the future of clean diesel technologies. Today, we have representatives of 4 regional diesel collaboratives who will provide us with insights into current and future activities within each region addressing emission issues of older diesel engines and equipment. According to my calculations, the representatives that we have on the call today represent about 30 states, a fairly sizable geographic area with a lot of equipment. Our speakers are going to brief you on the population and type of diesel application of most interest within each region and the available resources and policies that achieve emissions reductions, given the budget situation here in Washington, D.C. And in many state capitals across the country, including the regions that we have on the call today. We're going to hear about how these groups are planning to achieve emissions reductions given limited public resources. I know a few of our speakers will also touch on outreach activities and closer collaboration with manufacturers of clean diesel technologies and will provide you with information on how to better get involved with these groups. I know that time is of the essence and we're all very busy, so I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Susan McCusker, with the Mid-Atlantic Regional Air Management Association, representing the Mid-Atlantic Diesel Collaborative. So with that, I'm going to turn over the webinar to Susan.
Thank you, Ezra, and thank you to the Diesel Technology Forum for inviting us to speak to you all today. There we go. And today I'm going to talk about activities of the Mid-Atlantic Diesel Collaborative, which I will refer to as MDC. I actually work for Marama and the MDC, and I will get to what the MDC is a little later, but I'll start out by telling you that Marama, like DTF, or the Diesel Technology Forum, is a nonprofit association of 10 state and local air pollution control agencies in the Mid-Atlantic. And what we do is to provide a way for these 10 agencies to pool data, training, and project resources. Okay. On the next slide, the presentation outline, just a few points on what I'll cover today. I will explain to you what the Mid-Atlantic Diesel Collaborative is and both what we do to assist our members and also cover the projects that we have done in the recent past and are continuing to do to reduce diesel emissions in the Mid-Atlantic region. Okay. Next slide just gives a definition of the MDC, which is that we are a partnership between leaders from federal, state, and local government, the private sector, and environmental groups. So that covers just about anyone interested in diesel issues in the Mid-Atlantic region. And I have a map here of the Mid-Atlantic region, which includes New Jersey and North Carolina, and I would like to reassure regions 2 and 4 that we are not trying to steal their states, those EPA regions, but they are part of Marama's member states, and the MDC consists of EPA Region 3 member states. So that would be Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, D.C., and Pennsylvania. Okay. And going to the next slide, the mission and purpose of the MDC. The mission is fairly straightforward: to reduce diesel emissions to protect public health throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. And the picture here is a nice aerial shot of the Port of Baltimore, where we have undertaken several projects to work with them to reduce diesel emissions. On the next slide, we have the purpose of the Diesel Collaborative. The purpose is threefold: to leverage resources and expertise to reduce diesel emissions to improve public health, also to promote collaboration and coordination among projects within the region, and third, to raise awareness of activities underway and the need for additional diesel emission reduction projects in the region. One of our current projects kind of nicely illustrates the first 2 points. One of our big grants is the SmartWay Dray Truck Program, which is a program to give $20,000 down payments to approved owners of trucks that serve ports in Virginia, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Delaware. There's more detail about the whole application process that's available through our website. But going on to say that we received a competitive DERA grant, DERA being the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act grant, that we use to leverage money from the ports that are involved. So the ports in Virginia, Baltimore, Philly, and Delaware are all contributing money to this replacement effort. And in addition, truck companies and truck-related companies are able to contribute money through a private sponsorship program, which offers them benefits of being a SmartWay sponsor. So that's how we can leverage resources. And we've also used this program to leverage expertise. The development of the application process and the network of vendors took a lot of time and effort. And because this is a program that extends across 4 ports, but started in Virginia, we were able to take lessons learned from Virginia and apply them to the other ports and operate more efficiently there and use kind of economies of scale. So that's kind of our mission and purpose. And the third point on the mission and purpose slide was to raise awareness of activities underway. And so this kind of gets into our outreach activities, which again are threefold. We work predominantly through the MDC website, email updates, and quarterly webinars. On our MDC website, we list upcoming webinars and events, funding opportunities, news and updates, and we are working on an overhaul of the website and anticipate the new version being up and running by January 2013. The website address will be on the contact slide, which will be the last one, so it will be available there. Email updates we send out as needed, and quarterly webinars. For these, we partner with EPA Region 3 to discuss topics that are of interest to the diesel community. And recent topics have included the DERA Phase 1 and Phase 2 grants, successes and lessons learned from both the state and competitive DERA grant recipients. So that was very instructive when they discussed projects that they had undertaken, and most useful is kind of stumbling blocks that they had encountered and gotten through, and it's very valuable information for people who are looking to undertake similar projects. We did a webinar on diesel and diesel alternatives, in which the Diesel Technology Forum's own Alan Schaefer made the case for diesel, and in the opposite corner was Rich Castle talking about the benefits of liquefied natural gas and compressed natural gas. So that was a very lively debate. Those two were very knowledgeable and had worked together before, and it was pretty apparent in their presentation. We've also had webinars on dray truck replacements and health effects of diesel emissions and air toxics. So it's something to remind us all why we're working so hard to reduce diesel emissions. Okay. And all of those webinars are archived on the MDC website. Okay. On the next slide, I will touch on projects that we have undertaken. And putting this together, I realized that there have been quite a few of them, and there's a wide range of technology and also sectors, different applications. So I'm not going to go into detail on any of them, but if something catches your attention and you'd like to hear more about it, you can type in a question or contact me offline and we can talk about it, or hopefully put you in touch with someone who is involved in the project who would be willing to talk about it. But just to run through the list of retrofit projects that we've done in the past 5 years. DOCs, we've been involved with projects with the Maryland State Highway Administration and Montgomery County to retrofit dump trucks and delivery trucks. In Philadelphia, there was a project to retrofit fire engines. Port of Baltimore retrofitted 2 cranes with DOCs, and the Port of Virginia to date has retrofitted 201 dray trucks with DOCs. As far as DPF, Montgomery County, under the same grant that they use to do the DOC retrofits, retrofitted 12 delivery trucks, 15 dump trucks, and 5 off-road engines. And in Pittsburgh, they retrofitted 13 waste haulers with DPFs. And under other, I have Virginia Beach, which installed 10 non-operator interface coolant heaters in school buses so that those buses wouldn't idle their engines. When they were sitting, they could keep those coolant heaters on. And one thing I'd like to note about 2 of the DOC projects, Philadelphia and the Port of Baltimore, and one of the DPF projects in Pittsburgh, those were part of a demonstration grant, so they were not new technologies, but they were new applications for these technologies, and they were used to demonstrate that the technologies could work in real-life situations and would not affect normal operation. And subsequent to that grant, Philadelphia went on to retrofit its remaining eligible fire engine fleet. The Port of Baltimore went on to retrofit an additional 11 cranes, and in Pittsburgh, they received a grant to retrofit 33 additional waste haulers. So a nice leveraging of those grant resources to show that the technologies worked and to encourage people to use them in other applications. Okay. On the next slide, cover our Repower projects in the past 5 years. And the picture at the top is one of the 2 Annapolis Harborcraft that we repowered. And in that case, those 2 boats went from diesel to diesel-electric hybrid. In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, we had a project to repower 15 pieces of off-road construction equipment, and there should be a bullet there separating that and putting Baltimore on the next line. In Baltimore, CSX repowered 1 switch locomotive, and that's the photo on the bottom. Switch locomotive is it's an older locomotive that is used for yard operations, so they're typically very dirty, and a lot of times the yards are near population sites, so it's very nice to repower that and get cleaner switcher engines. Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Hampton Roads, that was a tug repower in which the propulsion and auxiliary engines were replaced, and that operates within Region 3 waters. They were pre-regulation 1975 engines that were repowered to Tier 2. And the final one on this page, it's the I-64 Express tug, which operates between Richmond and Hampton Roads, Virginia, and in that case, we repowered the auxiliary engines on 2 tugs. Okay, to continue on to replacement projects, in Alexandria, Virginia, we replaced 7 diesel buses with 7 diesel-electric hybrid buses. In Maryland, we replaced 7 old cement trucks. In Gloucester County, 5 old diesel school buses were replaced with propane buses. And in York County, Virginia, a model year 1978 backhoe was replaced with a model year 2010, much cleaner piece of equipment. So you can see that we're doing some on-road buses and transit, cement trucks, and then some off-road with the backhoe. So we've got a mix of technologies as well as a mix of applications. And this is a replacement project that is ongoing. It's the SmartWay dray truck replacement project that I had mentioned earlier. And to date, truck owners in serving the ports of Virginia, Delaware, Baltimore, and Philadelphia have replaced 147 dray trucks. That's to date. But the program is ongoing, and we anticipate replacing at least another 90 by 2014. And there you see a picture of Chris Green with his new truck. He's a driver serving the Port of Virginia, and obviously very happy about it. And the next slide, just kind of our miscellaneous projects. a biodiesel buy-down at the Port of Virginia and James Madison University, where we paid the difference between biodiesel and traditional diesel. And in Washington, D.C., the Idle Reduction Outreach and Driver Recognition Program. And these pictures are some examples of the materials that were generated as part of that partnership between Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. Some air fresheners on the top and a bumper sticker and a sign. And that project was to engage drivers through outreach events and direct mail. Very nice project. Okay, so that's it for what we've been doing, and here's what we are currently doing. And I would say that our direction is to keep doing what we've doing. Keep doing what we've been doing. We've had a nice mix of projects that have worked and good partners, so we're continuing on with these grants. Just being in the Mid-Atlantic, we tend to have a lot of port-related activities since we have a lot of coastline. But having said that, the first one here is a project in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, to retrofit and repower construction equipment. And we anticipate between 16 and 30 projects for small business construction companies. And we are currently accepting and reviewing applications for projects up to $100,000 per applicant. So if you know of any company small construction company in that area, please encourage them to check the website and possibly apply for that. The Mid-Atlantic Clean Diesel Assistance Program is a grant that we recently received to repower 2 tugs and 1 excursion vessel, the Spirit of Philadelphia. So those are all operating in Region 3. And finally, in Hampton Roads, Virginia, we're continuing the work that has already retrofitted 201 dray trucks at the Port of Virginia by intending to retrofit approximately 20 additional dray trucks. Okay. And kind of a synopsis of the emissions reductions from these projects to date, and this was calculated using EPA's diesel emissions quantifier and using their estimates for remaining lifetime. So that's why in the annual reduction charts, it kind of starts out slowly and then ramps up and continues at a steady pace before ramping down, because the projects all have different remaining lifetimes, so that plays out in the annual reductions of NOx and PM. And then a list of the NOx, PM, hydrocarbon, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide lifetime emission reductions. So, I think if anybody has any questions on that, we can pick that up offline too, but just to show you the numbers that we've been getting through these projects. And this is the last slide, contact info for myself, Rick Gordon, who is our Mobile Sources Program Manager, and Debbie Thomas, who runs the Dray Truck Replacement Program. So any of us can be reached at our respective email addresses or at the phone number shown. And then finally is the address of the MDC website, and it would encourage you to check there often. We're putting new opportunities and updates and funding opportunities, and be a good place to check. So, and that's, Ezra, that's all I have, and I guess if there are any questions, I'll take them up at the end during the question session.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, again, if any of you folks have any questions, we're going to take those at the very end of the webinar. So again, thank you very much, Susan. Up next, we're going to progress to our update from the Northeast Diesel Collaborative. And today we have both Gary Rennie and Michael Molson from U.S. EPA Region 2. Unfortunately, Eric Skelton from NESCOM was ill today and can't be with us, and he sends us our well wishes to move forward on a webinar today. So with that, I'd like to introduce Michael Molson and Gary Rennie.
Thanks very much, Ezra, and thanks to the Diesel Technology Forum for the opportunity to speak about the Northeast Diesel Collaborative. This is Mike Molson, and as you kind of alluded, this is going to be a group effort on our part. In addition to Gary, my colleague Rima Loughton will also be speaking about a few different aspects of the Northeast Diesel Collaborative, or the NDDC. And what we like to do over the next 15 minutes or so is give you a little bit of a background about our collaborative, an idea of what the membership is, and then I think what folks are interested in, which is the some of our plans for the future of the collaborative and how it might change a bit, what that might look like, and perhaps there'll be a little bit of a discussion about that. So the first slide that we've got lists out the current members of our collaborative, and it's essentially the two EPA regions, Region 1 and Region 2, the New England states, and then New York, New Jersey, and then also our Caribbean territories, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. I should mention that the Northeast Diesel Collaborative began in 2005. We were very much members or under the umbrella of the National Clean Diesel Campaign, and early on we saw that there would be a good deal of benefit by collaborating with stakeholders in our respective EPA regions, where there had already been quite a bit of experience in addressing diesel emissions with in-use programs, including retrofits, repowers, and the like, and some of the institutional knowledge that we were able to tap includes the Big Dig in Boston, the construction project that was in many ways a trailblazing clean diesel program. We were also able to benefit from some of the first, I think, tugboat repower programs instituted by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to help them meet some environmental obligations in the New York Harbor. The New York City Sanitation Department has a long history of, and as well the New York Metropolitan Transportation Authority, a long history of looking at diesel control technologies to meet environmental responsibilities and obligations, and quite a bit of institutional knowledge there. So with a lot of that impetus, we came together and formed the Northeast Diesel Collaborative. A couple of years down the road, we folded in the Caribbean territories, so they're not geographically part of the Northeast, but they're very much a part of our collaborative, and a lot of good work has gone on, and we anticipate will go on in the Caribbean territories in the years to come. NESCOM, the Northeast States for Coordinated Air Use Management, is a very important part of our collaborative. Ezra, you mentioned that Eric Skelton unfortunately couldn't join us, but Eric is the manager of our collaborative and does much of the coordination of our current activities. And then from the beginning, we included some private sector entities as in kind of an advisory capacity. Those initially included MJ Bradley and Associates, AJW Incorporated, and Corning. And those members that I just listed out essentially comprise our steering committee. I won't go through them all there, but I will also mention that through the activities of the Northeast Diesel Collaborative, in parallel with them, and then through the collaboration that we provide, we were able to see the advent of some important control programs get adopted at the state and local levels in the New England states and in the Region 2 states. Some of them include mandatory retrofit programs in Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey, and also at the local municipal level, the county level in the New York City metro area. And that will also factor into some of our future plans. Through the establishment of priorities over the years, it's consistently been demonstrated through our steering committee that the priority sectors that our steering committee representatives endorse include the following on this slide. And these sectors pretty much cover all of the major diesel emission sources in our states and territories. And we've seen very important and significant projects occur across all these sectors, and we hope to implement more in the future in some new and creative ways. At this point, I'm probably going to hand over to Rima Loudon. I'm sorry, first Gary, who's going to take us through one of the first of our two collaborative work groups. This is the Northeast Diesel Collaborative's Clean Construction Work Group. Gary?
Hello all. Yeah, my name is Gary Rennie. I work up here in the New England region, Region 1 of the EPA. I currently am on calls with the Clean Construction Work Group is led by Jenna Salamone out of Region 2. However, I regularly call in and coordinate some of the activities with her. The Clean Construction Work Group is a group of private companies, state agencies, nonprofits, consulting companies, et cetera, that meet monthly. We have a call, and basically to share information, share the latest technologies that are out there, the best practices within the industry are talked about. As a group, we decide what the group wants to focus on, based on more or less consensus and what the current topic may be. In the past, we have a few years ago there was a model contract specification that was developed by the NDDC. And we decided to, bring an update to that. I think the original one was 2008 or so. And in 2010, in the fall, we worked on updating that document as a group. So there was a lot of information to go through, and of course, technologies have changed since then. So we decided to release this document. It's a model contract specification document. It is on the website, and you'll see the image up on the slide here is the image of the first page of that document. Of course, the link is provided there, and it's a useful document for developers, owners, and just folks in the construction industry that you want to lay out what should be asked for in a construction site to basically reduce diesel emissions. What are the best practices that we could the technology and such that we should put in the document. And it's voluntary, so it's just they can choose to adopt some of this language and write their contract spec based off of this more or less template that we developed. It has been used by a few people throughout the country. We've received some good reports and good response from this document. So I encourage anyone who's interested in the construction industry to take a peek at this, and could be useful for you. The next document that we developed was the Best Practices Guide. And that is similar in nature, but it's more of an outline that walks through the entire process from bid specifications to what goes on site, how many days, say that something's called for to be retrofitted, how many days can that piece of machinery should it be on site to realize the benefits that are looked for. And it's a pretty comprehensive document. It outlines from soup to nuts, what an owner and or a developer can go through to ask the right questions and get emissions reduced on site. And that as well has been well received. And next slide, Mike.
Okay, this is Rima Loughton. I am one of the co-chairs of the Northeast Diesel Collaborative Ports Work Group. And as Mike mentioned, NDDC recognized early on that the ports sector was a very important sector to the region, to the collaborative group. And we had such a good working relationship with ports in the area that we decided to get this ports work group together and just focus on strategies to reduce diesel emissions through the ports arena and the goods movement supply chain. And we've discussed various topics. As I listed a few on the slide. We've focused on breaking down regulations through EPA regulations, or we've also had FHWA, DOT as guest speakers on our work group calls, and we've talked about various strategies that ports are looking into to reduce emissions through their operations. We've also developed a marine repower guide that, with the information that Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, NESCOM, various other participants of the work group developed doing marine repower projects. We listed out in the guide what you would need to consider if you're thinking of going through a marine repower project. And the key considerations, the estimated fuel efficiency that you can expect, and it's a neat, short guide to, if you're thinking of pursuing a marine repower project, it's something you should check out. And our next call is set for January, and on that call we will be discussing LNG use for marine vessels. It's a big topic these days, especially out in the West Coast. And with the emission control area and lower sulfur fuel being required, some marine operators are looking at LNG as an alternative to the lower sulfur fuel. So if you're interested in that topic, please feel free to send me an email and I can add you to our list.
Okay, this is Gary again. I'll speak really quickly here on the NDDC Breathe Easy Awards program. A couple years ago, 2010, we decided to look to a program that would basically recognize individuals and or companies or nonprofits that have been outstanding leaders in reducing diesel emissions and improving public health, and that also have partaken in activities that promote the goals of the NDDC overall. And 2010 was the first year we had, I believe it was 9 applications, and we awarded 6 awards. You'll see in the picture there in the slide that they're holding up the plaque that we give out as the award to those entities. And, it's just something that they can put up in their office or cubicle or whatever it may be. It's got a good response, good press. People, I think they should be acknowledged for taking efforts to reduce diesel emissions, and we have an annual awards program. We try to recognize that as such. You'll see on the slide the previous winners. I'm not going to go through them all, but winners have come from both Region 1 and Region 2, and they've both been individuals and or nonprofits, state agencies, and you pretty much run the whole gamut. We are planning on, and we'll get to this later in the presentation, but we are planning on having the 2012 Breathe Easy Awards presented during the NDDC spring meeting, which is going to be in April or May, but we will mention that in a few minutes. But that is it's been a good program. I think we modeled it more or less off of SEDC and also the MidAtlantic region, or the Midwest region, awards program. And so far it's been a great success, and we're looking for the 3rd round to come out pretty soon here. And if anyone wants information on the awards program, again, it'll be all listed on the NDDC website, which we'll provide at the end of this presentation.
So this is Mike Moulton again. I'll take the reins back over. This slide is what's next for the Northeast Diesel Collaborative. This is really, we're just in the very beginning stages of revamping the structure of our collaborative, and that very much includes expanding our membership. And the way that we are beginning to do that is through reaching out to local and municipal stakeholders in our states and regions and territories, and encouraging them to join the collaborative on an ongoing basis. The first set of new members that we've enlisted are several representatives of the Department of Energy's Clean Cities programs and Clean Communities programs throughout our 2 regions. And we're really excited about their coming to join us in the collaborative. We think that there's a lot of overlap in terms of the priorities of their organizations and our organization, and importantly, especially in the face of questions regarding the future of the DERA grant program, planning practically for the future, we are always looking for new funding sources for the types of projects that we've seen be successful in reducing diesel emissions and improving the health of the citizens of our region, states, and territories. And so to the extent that we can accomplish goals of multiple organizations and tap into some new for us funding, that's something that we're very focused on, and we also want to be able to importantly learn about new opportunities for addressing diesel emissions, and that's going to be an important role of our new members that are local and municipal, represent local and municipal governments. and we're expecting that we're going to find a lot of good new opportunities in addition to some potential new funding sources. Among the other new stakeholders that we hope to enlist in our collaborative work are the metropolitan planning organizations that work on transportation planning efforts throughout our two regions. And these are the organizations that some of you may already know have responsibility with regard to awarding federal FHWA, CMAQ, or Congestion Mitigation Air Quality funding. That is an annual portion of the funds that are allocated through the Department of Transportation. The priorities for that program have been changing such that there is an appropriate recognition of the value of addressing diesel emissions and fine particles with that funding source. And we've had some success already in leveraging CMAQ dollars for clean diesel projects in our region. Most recently, I believe there was a decision made to award CMAQ dollars to a Department of Transportation, New Jersey State Department of Transportation sponsored program in southern New Jersey to repower a switcher locomotive. Similarly, in South Jersey, there's CMAQ dollars that are going to help bring about new yard hustling equipment at one of the port facilities in South Jersey. So it's those kinds of new innovations that we're looking to add into our arsenal of clean diesel projects that we've had success on in the Northeast Diesel Collaborative. As Gary mentioned, we hope to bring all this together in an important meeting that's being planned for the spring of 2013. That'll be our stakeholder partner meeting, at which, as Gary mentioned, we will make some new awards through our Breathe Easy award program. And so that's the future of DERA. Again, as I mentioned, is driving in part some of our decisions to reconsider our structure and our membership. And I should also mention that we very much keep in touch with our fellow colleagues and the other diesel collaborators around the country, and are always looking to learn from them. There's some really great work that's occurring that we've heard about already from Susan McCusker for the MidAtlantic Diesel Collaborative, and that I know we're going to hear shortly from our colleagues in the Southeast and in the West and Northwest. This last slide just gives our contact information. It's all also on the website that's listed there, so I won't take up too much more time, and hopefully this provides a good segue to our next set of presenters.
Okay, thank you very much. That was some very good information, and I've received several questions, so we will get to those towards the end of our webinar here. Up next, we have Dale Aspey with EPA Region 4 representing the Southeast. So I'd like to hand it over to Dale.
Yeah, thank you, Ezra. Can everybody, well, hopefully you can hear me. I've got Kelly Sheckler here and Alan Pallas also on the line. Give you a little background on who we are, what we do. We are over 900 members here in the Southeast working towards improving air quality and public health. And that has been a major guiding force for the collaborative. You know, we unite under that banner. Bear with me. Okay. We are in our 8th year now. So far, we've done 473 distinct projects. We're impacting over 500,000 engines. One thing we try to work here very closely on is working with children and schools. So far, we've impacted over 14,000 buses and 3 million children. I think it's important to note, and we'll discuss it later, that several of our states have already retrofit or somehow reduced emissions from every available bus in that fleet. And we're very proud of that fact. One thing we try to do here is to leverage money. We all have limited EPA dollars, so we look to our partners to bring in money. and we've been very successful with that, especially with CMAQ funding. So far, we've invested about $73 million of EPA money, but we've been able to leverage about $700 million from other groups, like I said, mainly through CMAQ. Over the years, we've reduced emissions by over 36,000 tons lifetime reductions for NOx. VOCs, as you can see, is almost 4,000 tons for the lifetime of the project. PM, almost 3,000 tons. Carbon monoxide is over 12,000. And CO2, greenhouse gas emissions, we're up almost 800,000 tons of reduction. So a lot of good efforts to reduce idling emissions and other projects as well. As I mentioned, we have over 900 members in the Southeast Diesel Collaborative, and they come from a wide array of backgrounds. We have people from air quality agencies, from agricultural departments, energy offices, clean city groups, academia, and the private sector. We're especially happy having the private sector involved because we feel we are all in this together. And there's a great saying, green is green, and we feel working with the private sector, we can help them green their bottom line, and they can help us green the environment. So it's all one big partnership, and we exchange ideas on how to get things done here. In fact, over the years, we've changed our focus a number of times based upon the Strategic Planning Committee. This is a committee that is composed of a number of different groups. It's not just EPA people or air quality people, but we also have clean cities, we have the private sector and academia and researchers all working with us to come up with the best solutions to reduce diesel emissions in the Southeast. This committee comes up with multi-year strategies, and as I mentioned, we've changed those several times now. We complete one task and we move on to another one. We started out with school buses like I think almost everybody did many years ago, and now we're moving towards other areas, especially ports, freight movement, and construction. And we'll talk about those in a few minutes. The Strategic Planning Committee is very powerful, and they actually come up with a plan, a multi-year plan, that is then presented to our management here in Region 4. So I really have to emphasize it's not an EPA plan per se. There's input from EPA, but it's really what the partners want, what they feel is important to them and to their constituents. The plan, once it's approved, will go to the 3 focus groups, and we'll talk about those in a second. The focus groups actually implement the strategic plan. And here you can see the strategic plan. We're just now finalizing one for the next 3 years. Once it's finalized, it will go to our 3 groups, the freight focus group with the various subcommittees and subheadings underneath that, on-road public fleets, service fleets, and then non-road. And each of these 3 focus areas will implement their portion of the plan. As I mentioned, with over 900 people, collaboration is very important. We see ourselves as an information clearinghouse. We get asked questions and we do the research to find out the answers on how to, when to, what to, things like that. We want to make everybody feel part of the collaborative. And again, the Strategic Planning Committee is a key part of that because it represents all the diverse groups within the Southeast Diesel Collaborative.
I would like to point out that the membership on the Strategic Planning Committee board they are nominated by their peers. EPA does not pick those people. They're nominated by the 900 other partners, and for their leadership, for their and so forth. So it's a nomination. We go back to them saying, you know, you've been nominated. Do you accept? And they accept for a 2 to 3 year term.
We've been doing the annual leadership award for 7 years now, Kelly. Mm-hmm. And like Mike said, we feel this is very important to recognize people who have really made the effort to reduce diesel emissions. So this leadership award is selected not by EPA, but by a leadership award committee. And they, once a year, we select 3 different winners, 3 different categories, to receive the award, and then it's passed on the following year.
Correct. Like Dale said, that program, the selecting officials are not comprised of EPA. We're a non-voting member, so it's a selection by their peers. Anybody can nominate anybody, including themselves. And the 3 categories are industry, community, and this past year they added a new category called visionary for those types of companies or businesses that don't necessarily have a fleet but have made some substantial effort in the efforts to reduce diesel emissions.
We, especially Kelly here, compiles annual reports of what we've accomplished for that year. We present those to management and to the SEDC collectively. We have an annual partners meeting, and we feel this is a very important chance to meet face-to-face with people, to network, to get ideas, to learn things. Part of that conference is an annual photo contest where we have people send in pictures representing their projects. They get some publicity that way. There's awards made for the best photographs. It's a recognition event, and it's something we do to make people feel part of the collaborative, to take an active role in it.
And we continually use them in presentations throughout the year and in those annual reports, so lots of visibility for the people.
Every month we have a collaborative call. We have a keynote speaker. It may be somebody from research or private industry, from headquarters. It could be a variety of people. And then we have monthly focus group calls as well.
Hey, Dale, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to do one more thing on the partners meeting. And the purpose in the partners meeting is to get all of our partners together, but it's also people come there with the mindset of they've got ideas for projects and they're looking for people to collaborate on with. And we've had a lot of projects that have come out of the partners meetings and lots of good relationships, and that's one of the things I think that is really has been a real success with the partner meetings, and is kind of justified why we're having 100 to 175 people show up every year at our meeting.
Yeah, excellent point, because we really do look to the members for the ideas. The general plan we have from the Strategic Planning Committee is working with the Diesel Technology Forum on lobbying. Now, we as federal government, we cannot lobby, but individual members can. So there's a lot of interest from our members of working with DTF on that type of idea. Developing a new brochure on explaining what the collaborative is and how it works. The idea here is to use it as outreach for prospective new members. We want to work with individual cities and counties to unify a message. Many things can be defined in one heading, and that heading depends upon the particular area involved. Climate change is one topic that can work in some areas, but not in others. Children's health is a topic that will work, in some cases, not others. So what we're trying to do is tailor the message.
And we also combine, we focus on three things: energy, economics, and the environment. I think we forgot to mention that up front, but we do a lot with return on investment. So it's not just an economic benefit as well as an environmental benefit and energy benefit. So
when we talk with the private sector, we go out with business cases and how other companies have saved X amount of dollars with these plans. With public fleets, a number of successes. These are just a few. One of the great programs is collecting landfill gas and using it to power garbage trucks. I love that concept. It's like cradle to grave type idea. A number of our states have their DOT fleets doing retrofits or using biodiesel. Transit buses have been used a lot, and retrofit. School buses, of course. City fleets, we've had great success with some cities doing a major portion of their diesel fleet and retrofitting those. Zoos and parks, anywhere that clean air is really needed. People are outside. We've got some projects going on there. We're very proud also that two of our states, North Carolina and Mississippi, have done every available bus, either retrofit or replaced or somehow exchanged it, reduced emissions from like diesel emissions there.
I'd like to add also that a lot of our DOTs and through our transportation conformity partners, they've been able to encourage and have utilized CMAQ dollars to retrofit and replace bucket trucks and other maintenance vehicles that are used in the service, well, we don't got a lot of de-icers here, but you have street cleaners, waste haulers, that sort of thing. So that's been real successful down here.
We're doing a new effort, Green Colleges, and working very closely with some of our colleges here. And when you get the kids involved, there's so much enthusiasm. It's a great outreach mechanism. In the future, in this next strategic plan, next cycle, we're going to implement a best practices document for different fleets, especially school buses. We're going to focus on waste haulers. Waste haulers spend a lot of time in neighborhoods going slow. A lot of diesel emissions. Miami-Dade has done tremendous amount with hybrid waste haulers. We're expanding that use, CNG waste haulers. So big effort there. We're looking to expand the school bus program, like I said, to universities and colleges. Also paratransit services for the elderly, clean those things up. And we'll continue working with school buses, but we've really done quite a bit already with those. Ellie, you want to talk about the non-road?
Sure. The focus with non-road has been construction for many, many years, and then that industry took a little bit of a setback due to economic reasons. So we turned our focus to mining and forestry, which is huge down here in the South, and that became a priority for the past couple years and will continue to be a priority. Through the efforts of our partners, they've been able to work with 152 companies in North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida that have conducted engine replacements or repowers in both of those industries. They've had 11 emission reduction workshops, and what's important there is they got continuing education credits. I don't know if you know anything about the mining and the forestry industries, but they do have to go back and get recertified periodically, and we were able to use that avenue to get folks educated on some behavioral changes that they could make and some of the things that they're exposed to and why emission reductions from these types of engines and vehicles were important. We were also able to do 22 idle reduction workshops for over 450 equipment operators, and then all the employees that worked at the company were also included. And as a result of that effort, we got 43 companies to adopt idle policies. That's just in mining and forestry. I don't even think we put on these slides here that we've been doing a lot of work with the military installations and so forth and have gotten them to adopt the idle policies. What Dale didn't mention, like with the school bus program, every school bus, we don't have laws down here. The states down in the South really don't favor the regulatory approach. They favor more of a voluntary effort. It's been much, much more successful, and we have idle policies just about in every single county in all of our states. Real proud of that. Another thing we've done is to have these focus group meetings where we've reached out to get feedback from the construction, the mining, the forestry folks about what their concerns are. These are people that have done projects. These are associations and others, and it's really been a valuable experience. Hearing what some of their issues are, what they're combating with. There's been a lot of safety issues. We discussed that, and technology and different grant opportunities, and it's really just been a great experience. I have lots of feedback on that. If folks want that, you can always contact us. And I would like to point out the state DEER grants. Like Dale said, traditionally in the past it was school bus. Our folks are now changing their emphasis of their state programs, not all of them, but some of them, to focus on mining and forestry. So what are we going to be doing in the future? Our group is still ironing that out, but they do want to launch a federal and state agency clean construction campaign, and this would be a letter from our regional administrator, to all the different state and federal agencies, whether it's HUD, DOT, so forth and so forth. Anybody that's involved in construction that is using state and federal dollars, we feel that they have a responsibility to do so wisely. So we're going to be using some of that model language from the Northeast, we thank you, to share with our folks here and try to get them to put that in their contracts. The other thing we're going to be doing is focusing on idling and best practices at construction and other industrial sites. There are huge opportunities in that entire operation where a lot of engines can be shut off and don't need to be idling, for 8 to 12 hours a day while they're waiting to perform a particular task. So we'll be reaching out with them, and we're doing that with huge support from one of our nonprofits, the Clean Air Campaign, who has offered to supply the signage and to use their marketing skills and folks. We're going to be doing a technical forum with our airports and airlines, the Department of Defense and Department of Energy. We've had huge momentums occur with efforts with the military, but we've also been doing a whole lot with the airports and airlines. We have the first airport rebate program, I think, in the country out of the Mecklenburg, Charlotte International Airports. We got about 14 airlines on board that are doing something with their ground support equipment. So we want to bring these folks together to try to synergize what we're all doing individually, whether it's ground support clean diesel strategies, whether it's biofuels in aviation and other military applications. So the other effort that we're going to focus on this year is green campuses. Our universities, we have some great ones down here. We also have some other ones that have a huge minority population, and we feel it's real important that these kids are exposed, the students and the faculty, and we've heard that it's a marketing campaign almost to bring the best faculty to their universities by adopting idle strategies on campus, make sure the landscaping equipment is done implementing either a clean fuel or a clean diesel strategy. Like I said, idling with services and so forth being delivered to campus, clean construction. So we'll continue with that effort. And
I just want to echo the importance of meeting with these industry groups. We met with a group in Alabama with mining equipment, and we learned there that it's costing them up to $2.32 a minute to let vehicles idle. So we're working with them on an outreach campaign to reduce idling. But that really adds up, and when you use that information, the companies really stand up and take note. Alan, do you want to take care of the marine and airports?
Sure. Well,
tell me when to change the slide if you.
Okay. I don't know whether I may be able to do that here, Dale. I'll give it a shot. One of the big things, in the southeast, and the southeast being North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, all on the coast there, and then Alabama and Mississippi. We've got about 25% of all the freight export goes out through those, for the U.S., goes out through those ports. So there's a lot of activity, both from a truck and train standpoint and from a shipping operation. And we've got quite a bit of import as well. And through the collaborative, one of the big focuses has kind of evolved to being looking at some of our port activity and looking at both at the airports for the overnight stuff and then in the ports, in the marine ports and inland ports, looking at how that freight is moved. We've had a good bit of activity with Charleston, Savannah, Port Everglades, Port of Miami, and the Port of Jacksonville, looking at really making some significant and long-lasting changes to the way they do operations, and in a lot of cases really eliminating diesel equipment by electrifying a lot of cargo handling equipment and repowering a lot of their other equipment that really can't stay on a specific track. You know, electric, you have to kind of stay in one place, and it's really got to be it limits the way that a port layout can be changed and things like that. So a lot of ports prefer to go with cleaner equipment, and we've done a lot of that in Charleston and Savannah and Miami on that, both through DERA money and also just our ports taking it on themselves to say, hey, well, how can we position ourselves to where as the world economy starts looking at climate and whether or not we here in the U.S. support that belief or not, internationally it definitely is, and a lot of international companies are looking to reduce their climate footprint. So we're getting the benefits of decreased exposure and decreased emissions, and they're getting the benefit of positioning themselves internationally to bring in more activity to their ports. So it's kind of everybody wins. Last year, or 2 summers ago, South Carolina launched their dray replacement program down in Charleston in conjunction with EPA announcing their SmartWay dray program. And this was the first attempt down in the South to look at the dray fleet. We kind of copied and mimicked some of the things that were going on the West Coast and used the efforts in the Port of Virginia to really not make the mistakes that they did, but also realize what kind of rebate and what kind of funding needs to go into that to help make it cost effective for some of these independent truck drivers to get into newer trucks. There's one of the things down in the Southeast also is that we really have a lot of biomass, and a lot of our ports are looking at biodiesel as a fuel supplement to their diesel fuel to reduce hazardous air pollutants in urban areas. That's one of the biggest things they deal with. You wouldn't think it, but they deal with citizen complaints about pollution. And one of the strategies that has been fairly successful is going to a B20 mix, in some cases, biodiesel, to reduce that impact and let the citizens know that they're looking, that while they're a key economic engine for the community, they also realize that they have an impact on the community. Kelly mentioned the AeroGrade program in Mecklenburg County, and some of the stuff that they're doing with the airlines. Another area where we've partnered with the Federal Aviation Administration is with the VAIL projects. And VAIL is changing, so it's not the same as it was before, but the purpose in the VAIL program is to encourage airlines and airports to do things ahead of where they would have to regulatorily and voluntarily do things that they can save the emission reduction credits and use them in the future if there's some regulation that comes in that says they're going to have to reduce emissions. They can go back and say, hey, look, you can't penalize us for being good citizens and doing this ahead of time. And there's a program in place for that. And then the last thing on the airports was that there are about 18 airports and sharing a lot of information, and there's a lot of competition, so that number may be a little low. But looking at air quality issues with the airports, a lot of the airports are really keen on noise and things like that that impact their local community because they get lots of complaints from that. And we're trying to get ahead of the curve on the air quality side of things and really develop practices that as airports expand, they're doing it in a sustainable manner so that they can continue to operate and be efficient. Let's see. Okay. All right. Dale mentioned that the three main areas that we are focused on through our strategic planning committee's advice is non-road, public fleets, and the other one, which is really getting a lot of interest, is freight movement. And basically, how does a package get from how does stuff go from ship to retail? So that's kind of the focus of this third group, is looking at reducing the footprint and reducing the cost of getting something from a ship to the store. Some of the key things we've done that's really kicked off our freight movement is we hosted a regional freight summit in August in conjunction with our annual meeting. And that was really the first time that we brought together federal highway, DOT planners, metropolitan planning organizations, and really talked about not only looking at infrastructure efficiency and the movement of vehicles, but also the air quality impacts and the efficiencies in air quality as well, and how they marry up very well together. That if you're moving freight efficiently, you're causing less pollution, and there's some other things that you can do that are beneficial. So we're hoping that really kicks off a lot of discussion, and maybe not anything that we're able to explicitly quantify as a result of it, but just change the mindset. And that's really the key to this, is changing the mindset of how you do freight planning and freight movement. And we've got trucking partners. I see Skip's on the line, and some other folks that are really helping lead that, because here at EPA and all of our partners, we don't all have the expertise, but between the larger group, we've got a really good base of knowledge to do things wisely, where we don't have to go back and backtrack. One of the key things for the Southeast, and it's been a key thing and a goal of the SEDC from the beginning, was to really look at fueling options along interstates and along freight movement locations, and with that, looking at alternative fuel availability. And if you've seen the LNG and the CNG refueling stations, there's going to be a lot more of that. Our partners with the Clean Cities program are really spearheading a lot of this for us, at looking at developing interstate corridors where there's a legitimate availability of fuel, not just one station here and another one 600 miles, but enough refueling of alternative fuels and a variety of fuels, biodiesel, CNG, LNG, to where trucking companies can actually make decisions to change their fleets or to change their fuel decisions based on economy, based on their corporate policies regarding sustainability and things like that. So we're trying to open some doors there where it's easier for a company to make a decision to do good things for the environment without affecting their pocketbook. We've done a lot with electric stations, electric refueling stations, really for the automobile industry in a lot of cases, but also for truck stop electrification. That's still a viable option for at least the near term. Maybe not, the super long term, but certainly near term. That's an option to reduce emissions. Both South Carolina Trucking Association has made big strides with their auxiliary power units throughout the Southeast. Florida Turnpike and Georgia have made some progress. Florida Turnpike has a program that was funded through DERA where they've got truck stop electrification stations. And we're learning a lot of stuff from there, like where you should really put a location and what truckers are really looking for, because we don't know that, and we're learning that through some of these programs. Let me see. One more thing that is going on, it's not on the last slide, but is we've got quite a few of our states that are looking at APU replacement programs. State of Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and they're looking at trucking companies that are located in their states and providing rebates to help smaller independent trucking companies make that hurdle to where it's cost effective for them to install auxiliary power units or battery air conditioners on some of their long haul trucks. It won't necessarily impact the Region 4 states, but the philosophy is that they're helping their companies within their state stay in business, but they're also looking at the overall impact, and hopefully there'll be more of these programs throughout the U.S., and then we'll benefit from some of those other programs that are outside of the region from their trucks coming into our region as well. So,
Alan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could we just give you a few more minutes? We're a little bit over schedule here, and our next speaker is a little bit pressed for time.
Okay, we're wrapping it up here. Future, looking at MAP 21 and the changes in MAP 21, and really looking at getting our air pollution folks and the MPOs and DOTs to work together to take the directives of MAP 21 and make them really successful, and particularly with using CMAQ dollars and in freight planning. We're continuing to work with the biodiesel industry and looking at how we should whether we should change some of our philosophies on the way we do things with electrification, with TSE vouchers versus grants. And as Dale said, continuing to identify return on investment business cases. And finally, just the Gulfport is one of the areas that we're looking at for freight planning and really focusing on that area. And then our final thing is alternative fuels programs. This is an outreach effort for the most part, but we work with the Green Racing Program, with a Petit Le Mans, and the Green Acres Waste to Fuel Program with Hartsfield International Airport, and our biofuels webinar series that we are doing in conjunction with some of our Clean City partners. And these are the contacts, and down there where you can't see it, it's southeastdiesel.org is our website. Hey, I'm done.
Okay, thank you much. I really appreciate that. Moving on, we have Dan Brown with EPA Region 9 giving us the update from the West Coast Diesel Collaborative. Dan is very gracious enough to join us today. He's very busy. He's in between meetings, so he is dialing in, and he does not have a presentation for us. but we do have the benefit of hearing his voice. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dan.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I think we can hear you, Dan.
Okay, great. So thanks, Ezra, and thanks, everybody. And thanks to the other collaboratives who've talked and actually made me wrapping up here, made my job easy and efficient, seeing as how they pretty much already covered everything that we're also doing on the West Coast Collaborative. So I'll talk a little bit about West Coast Collaborative. I'm sure folks who are at all interested, and I see many of the vendors of equipment on the call, and so I'm sure they already are pretty well aware and have probably participated in some of our partnership meetings. But we have a website, westcoastcollaborative.org, and it is the West Coast, so it comprises of EPA Regions 9 and 10, including the states of Arizona, California, Nevada, Hawaii, from Region 9, and then up here in Region 10, it's Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And then we also have the Pacific Islands and over 400 tribes. And my counterpart from the EPA Region 9 office is Penny McDaniel. She's unable to join us today because she is actually in Taiwan. A lot of the focus of the work we do here on the West Coast has to do with freight, and we're involved in some international work with the Chinese government and looking at some sustainable port initiatives on the other side of the ocean where the container ships are coming from. But here, focused domestically, we are our sort of path forward and priorities is set by a steering committee, much like the steering committees you've heard the other collaboratives talk about. And we have our partnership meetings. We used to have them annually. I think that's spread out to about once every 18 months now. And we use those partnership meetings to find out what's important. We get great participation from equipment manufacturers, equipment operators, and state and local air agencies. And it's clear that this technology is incredible. Clean diesel engines are just incredible in terms of solving air pollution problems. And it's really just a question of not wanting to wait so long for their benefits. And so we have our sectors, we call them. We have a trucking sector, a rail sector, a port sector, a non-road sector, and a municipal sector. And in addition to those larger partnership meetings, we have sector calls to talk about, latest and greatest technology, cool projects that are happening, and how we can get more clean technology out there. We use the DARE grants like everybody else. We tend to focus and prioritize that funding towards freight and goods movement in community projects. And when I say community projects, I really mean projects that address diesel impacts on community. Like Alan said, he talked about getting more involved with the Department of Transportation, particularly through the National Freight Strategy work that is unfolding. We are too involved in that, thinking that in addition to working on, individual engines, it makes sense to think about how these things operate in systems. We've been working with the ports locally here in Region 10. There are dray truck programs that are implemented through what's called the Northwest Ports Clean Air Strategy, and that is for the ports of Seattle and Tacoma. and that is a pretty successful collaboration that continues to sort of push the envelope beyond dray trucks and into starting to now look at harbor vessels and trying to look at whether or not there's something the ports can do to encourage more clean diesel technology in the rail sector in the multimodal terminals. But then how all that works as a system. And we've been working on some, for example, talking about queue-in pilot studies, trying to figure out how to get trucks more inefficiently in and out of the ports. And I know we're very pressed for time, so, and I know Ezra is going to want to leave time for questions. So I think, really the one thing I didn't hear too many others talk about that I could mention is we're seeing a lot more interest in black carbon and how the DPFs can also reduce black carbon. It's generally thought as a climate forcer, and here on the West Coast and including the Arctic up in Alaska, the negative effects of black carbon on the glaciers in our mountains as well as the Arctic is starting to get more widely recognized as the science gets stronger on that. And there's less snowpack, there's earlier melt off of the snow, and so it's having more far-reaching effects on aquatic habitat and whatnot, and black carbon seems to be a pretty big driver of some of this stuff. And so people are starting to look at, whether or not that is yet another, as if the public health benefits aren't compelling enough, but whether or not the black carbon is another compelling reason to try to do more to get this clean diesel technology out ahead of attrition rates and onto equipment that's going to continue to be operating. And so with that, I think, Ezra, hopefully that still gives you guys a little time for Q&A.
All right, Dan, thank you very much for those comments. We certainly appreciate you being on the call. Yes, we do have a few questions that have popped in. Actually, I have quite a number of questions on marine. The first question has to do with marine retrofits. And again, this is to all speakers, so to all panelists. So if all panelists, if you wouldn't mind unmuting your line and identifying yourself before answering. The first question is if anybody sees a big opportunity for marine retrofit to reduce NOx to reduce NOx using SCR.
Hi, this is Rima Lawton from EPA Region 2 Northeast Diesel Collaborative. We've had some experience here in New York with the Staten Island ferries and SCR. There are two ferries that operate on SCR and have been using that technology for a few years now to reduce NOx. And I haven't seen that expanding to many more marine vessels, but I think it's something that's in the background to be considered.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to comment before I move on? Okay. The next question we have, if anybody has considered repowering commercial freight ships, ocean-going vessels, with nuclear power, for example, the Savannah, which would basically provide a CO2-free power and reduce bunker crude fuel emissions from these ships. Has any of the collaboratives considered nuclear-powered ocean-going vessels?
This is Dan Brown on the West Coast. No, we haven't heard that one. But as one of the folks had mentioned earlier, we are getting a lot of interest, or hearing a lot of interest from folks to convert to liquefied natural gas, and we are trying to work with them to make that happen through provisions within the Emissions Control Act for demonstration projects. But we have not heard of anybody expressing any interest in nuclear power.
Interesting. Thank you, Dan. Does anybody else have any comments to that question?
Just ditto Dan down in Region 4. We haven't heard anything like that either in the Southeast Diesel Collaborative.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Same for the Northeast.
Okay.
Also for the MDC.
Okay. Moving on, for all panelists, other than doing more projects, is there something that you wish you could do but can't do because of budget limitations or other priorities?
This is Susan McCusker from the MidAtlantic Diesel Collaborative, and something that we'd like to be able to do more of is to follow up with our grantees and project partners and to be able to catch up with them a year or two out and see how the technologies are working and what experiences they're having at that point down the road.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Down in the Southeast, Southeast, this is Alan Powell. I think one of the things that we're going to try to do, but it's a resource and a time and other priorities all get in the way of, is really looking at the movement of goods from port to retail. Looking at it on a large holistic base and looking at the logistics of choice, mode choice, and that kind of thing takes a lot of collaboration with numerous federal, state, and local groups, and it's just a big undertaking. And we're trying to do some of that, but I don't think we don't have near the time to really do it effectively without lots of partner support.
Mm-hmm. This is Gary Rennie in the Northeast Diesel Collaborative. I think if we had more money available and resources, when we get DERA funds applications submitted to us, we have to obviously deny many great applications that call for from repowering to retrofits to whatever it may be for especially legacy diesel engines. So I think there's so many engines out there that still need to be either retrofitted or should be taken out of service. If we had more money and resources to do that, it would be a great thing, and I think get to the end goal a little more quickly.
Right. Anybody else?
Just to add to what Gary said, and because of the resource issues, we're having to do really large projects, which in some cases means taking a really good project that would taking a bunch of really good projects and mixing with some that are so-so. If we had more people and more ability to look at single project applications instead of having to look at project applications that included 6 projects within it, I think we'd have better projects as well.
So you're finding that you're having to focus on what sort of very, very large projects as opposed to smaller projects?
Yes, and the large projects are usually smaller projects combined together to meet threshold amounts and things like that. So it may be 4 projects within one grant, and if we had the ability to manage 4 separate projects, it would be better for us, but we just don't.
Okay, would anybody else like to comment on that?
I mean, I think, the goal is to do more projects because that's where you're going to get the most profound emission reductions by getting the clean diesel technology implemented. So, to answer that question, it's other things like collaboratives with ports or any others that have leverage to help get more projects implemented. And then sort of beyond the actual projects, I think, is the stuff that Alan was talking about and others regarding just looking at, for example, freight, how it moves as a system, and looking, nationally at system efficiencies. I mean, are there opportunities to shift to different modes and ultimately use less energy and emit less pollution to get the products from point A to point B? So that's sort of, beyond actually doing projects work that, it would be wonderful to have more time to do that. And in the interim, we leave it to the folks over at DOT to focus on some of that stuff through the National Freight Strategy.
Right. We have a question here about through the collaboratives, if anybody's learned about information on the inventory of equipment, particularly off-road equipment in the region or in the state. Have you folks looked at doing any inventory work?
This is Dan Brown. We haven't looked at that directly, although some of our partners have. There's a lot of interest in non-road equipment, and I hear some level of frustration, and I wish I had my non-road sector lead on the call to elaborate, but there is some level of frustration that there aren't, at least from one person's perception, enough verified equipment for the variety of verified technology for the variety of non-road equipment that is out there. And we do have a state that's pretty interested in potentially pursuing some sort of more in-depth industry engagement on kind of inventorying what's out there and what technology exists, and trying to find out if there's a way to hone in to get some better projects implemented in that area.
Dale, I'm here with
Go ahead, Dale.
Southeast Diesel Collaborative. We do not have an inventory. One thing we've found, especially with highway construction, heavy construction equipment, is it's very mobile, and it may be registered in one state and actually used in another state. So there's a lot of interest. We've had some people try, but we only have generalities on an inventory. And also like to echo what Dan said, we wish very much that there's more verified technology for non-road equipment. That's one of our major focus areas.
This is Gary. Just wanted to mention up in the Northeast, there's a company, or organization rather, NYSERDA, New York State Energy Research Development Association, I think it stands for. NYSERDA has partnered with a consulting company or contract with a consulting company to develop the clearinghouse, the Clean Diesel Clearinghouse, and that's going to be, I think, online, up and running pretty soon. They're going through some trials right now, but it is a means to get an inventory of engines out there, and also see what technology is the proper application for what what's needed. So I think you could ask REMA or anyone in Region 2 for more information on that, or Eric Skelton at NESCOM is also involved in that project as well. That's all I had.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, we work with them pretty closely as well. Would anybody else like to comment? Okay, I had a quick question for everybody. A few of you, I think all of you, had mentioned clean construction initiatives within your regions. Here at DTF, we've been looking at tucked away provision in MAP 21, the Transportation Reauthorization Bill, and this is something called the CMAQ Improvement Program. And our back of the envelope calculations, kind of signify, or at least suggest, that there's a lot of money on the table in this program. And this is for retrofit of construction equipment that I believe would be used in federal aid highway programs in states with non-attainment areas. And I think a few of you referenced this. I'm just curious if any of you have any thoughts on implementing this program, or if anybody is considering, if FHWA is considering doing any guidance on this program, or where we can learn more about how this program is going to move forward in the future.
This is Dale in Southeast Diesel Collaborative. Kelly had to leave. She's our main contact, but I know we have reached out to the state air quality directors to make them aware of that program, and we have a meeting coming up early next year with the various DOTs to talk about that and getting the two groups working together to utilize the funding to clean up the construction equipment.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
This is Dan. I haven't explored that, but I will, having now heard about it again. There is, again, as folks already mentioned, the two struggles with non-road equipment is the availability of verified technology, and also, there's the equipment owners, I don't think see it as a good business investment because there doesn't seem to be a return on the investment. But I think one thing that could be done in that regard is to try to make it a smart business investment in terms of the benefits for the operator of that piece of equipment. And that's sort of some of the work we're trying to do with one of our stakeholders now.
Dale here again. Exactly right, Dan. You hit the nail on the head. What we've been looking at is helping to work with the various companies on repowers, because there's simply not the equipment out there, verified equipment. But with repowers, you can make a business case for lower fuel use.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we just have one. It's not really a question so much as that it's a comment. There had been some mention about idle reduction work. I think all of you folks had mentioned that the various collaboratives have been doing in this area. And someone had noted that there's actually a newsletter out there, the National Idle Reduction Network News. Anybody who is interested in subscribing to that or getting a copy, again, it is available online. It has a very long URL. I've copied it. And if anybody would like to get their hands on that URL, please email me and I will send it along to you. Also, I understand that in the interest of time, we're a little bit over here, so thank you for everyone for participating in our webinar, and for our panelists for providing us with a lot of detailed and very useful information. So thank you very much. And if I understand our instructions here, I think that we've been recording this webinar, and we will make that available, I think, on our website for anybody who would like that. But if not, I think we can figure out a way to get it to you. So once again, thank you, panelists, for participating, and everybody else for jumping on our latest webinar.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.